external and domestic shocks, including the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic. Due to these shocks, economic growth declined from 6.8% in financial year 2018-2019 to 3.0% in financial year 2019-2020. Despite these shocks, the economy was on the path to recovery, although this may slow down due to the impact of the second wave of the pandemic that has led to a second lockdown. And you can see how many people are dying. The measures introduced by the world and our government to contain the spread of the pandemic, like restrictions on travel, resulted in low economic activity for sure. This has mainly affected the three sectors of the economy, because even the others have been affected. For example, services for sure. Especially in terms of transport, you can say that for yourselves. Industry, agriculture. Consequently, this has negatively affected household incomes. In this regard, Government of Uganda requested International Monetary Fund assistance to support our emergency response to the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as to support economic recovery in the short, medium, and long term. The Executive Board of IMF on 28th June this year, 2 days back, approved a 3-year financing package under the extended credit facility for Uganda in an amount of SDR, special drawing rights, 722 million, equivalent to US dollars 1 billion US dollars. This is to support the post-COVID-19 recovery. The 3-year program will cover the period between 2021 to 2024, and the resources will be disbursed in 7 tranches. These funds will support Uganda to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic and our strategy of inclusive growth, employment creation, and wealth creation, as stipulated in NP3. The approval of the ECF arrangement enables the immediate disbursement of about US dollars 258 million, usable for budget support. This follows the IMF emergency support to Uganda under the Rapid Credit Facility in May 2020 of special drawing rights 361 million, which is equivalent to 491.5 million US dollars. The program will include reforms to increase domestic revenues, foster public sector efficiency, and strengthen governance while preparing the ground for sound management of oil revenues. The program will also strengthen monetary policy and financial sectors frameworks, as well as promoting financial inclusion. In the first year, government will focus on ensuring debt sustainability while increasing social spending, including for vaccines. The program will also ensure the implementation of the domestic revenue mobilization strategy, better management of public investment, control of domestic arrears, as well as improving budget execution. I urge all accounting officers of government to utilize all public funds at their disposal efficiently and transparently to drive growth and provide services to our people. I will not hesitate to institute disciplinary measures on any accounting officer who fails to provide accountability or execute timely government projects and programs. Let me divert a little bit from this written text.
It is.
Now, countrymen and countrywomen, where the situation has reached now, we all must pull our socks. It cannot be business as usual. Sloppiness, diversion of resources, delayed execution of works or implementation of projects. You know, some of us, we don't want to talk much on some issues. Once we say something, we simply keep quiet. And then we start going underground. Some of us have been tolerant enough. Our names are being soiled when we have not committed sins, but we see the sins being committed around us. We thought people, by talking and explaining and cajoling, people would change. I'm afraid, I think now playing games must come to an end. I'm not threatening, I'm only warning. I'm only warning. So please conclude, let us implement what we have agreed in the most efficient manner possible. If we have a challenge, we are around. Come to us and say, Minister or Permanent Secretary, on this one, I'm feeling a challenge like this. How do we go about it? But getting papers and you put them under the table so that then the information cannot flow, and therefore we quickly to get a chain of actions from various individuals who are maybe working on some project or some idea or something like that. That one, some of us, I'm telling you, we will not relate. So I'm saying all this in the interest of our country called Uganda. A country which every one of us, including those who have come to join us to live in Uganda, we live comfortably. Yes, the pandemic has come, that's very true, but it will go. We gave assurances with my fellow ministers yesterday. Is it yesterday or the other day? Yes, I think it was yesterday.
Yesterday.
We shall defeat this enemy called the COVID-19. I can tell you that one. We have defeated more vicious enemies, more than COVID-19. For sure, people will die, as they're already dying. But in war, when one soldier falls, you just don't abandon, you don't put up your hands and say, Banang. No, then you don't understand where you are at war. So for every war, definitely there will be victims. That I want to assure you. The only thing now we need to do in this war, and I'm repeating what the Minister for Health has been saying, is to make sure that we don't catch this thing. You heard the President the other day telling us that it is we are carrying the thing around.
We are the victors.
Yes, we are the victors. And I'm encouraging really, if you have nothing to do, remain in your home. We are at a level which makes me uncomfortable because we have already reached the 50% GDP ratio.
51.9.
It's now what?
51.9. It was read in the budget speech.
It was already in the budget speech, which is once you go beyond 50, your ability to the chances of your failure to service your roles, as and when they fall due, becomes a reality. You can only now do so again by going for borrowing. You see how the situation, the thing is snowballing. In order for you to service, then you go to borrow again. So you are really in a vicious circle. You are tied. So we are extremely sensitive about this. I said it yesterday if you had been there, I said borrowing, even now the question of funding COVID, the 600 billion shillings which I announced yesterday, we are not borrowing. We are going to cut. So that will mean either some projects being suspended for the timing or slow down, or some activities completely removed. The good thing, there is some good money in travel and the conferences of this type. Now we can't travel now. So there is a good saving. Yeah. We don't travel now. Me, I can't. Even if it wasn't the threat of COVID, I don't travel. So, to answer your question directly, we have reached 51 something percent, and the issue of now the question of borrowing, either domestically or externally, additional borrowing, until the situation improves.
Borrow over 5.7.
So you are asking where is the other money going?
The rest of the money,
Oh.
we need to borrow again.
No, borrowing again. Don't make me ask my finance secretary. He will tell you.
Informed you that our level of borrowing is now 51.9%. Even this borrowing and the financing for COVID and other related issues in the Ministry of Health and the rest of the government, the little borrowing that's going to be there is already programmed within the 51.9%, including this money which is coming from IMF. So, with respect to the financing of additional money for COVID and other related expenditures, the Minister has told you that Cabinet has decided immediately with respect to the requirements for COVID, the oxygen plants, etc., where they require about 600 billion. We are going to cut the budget for next financial year. You know, the budget was approved 44 point something trillion. Out of that, there's debt financing. Out of that, there's a resource available from URA, which is going to be short by a certain amount of money. But we are going to cut
about 2 trillion.
About 2 trillion because of the lockdown. So we are going to cut from the budget for next financial year 600 billion. And which areas are going to be cut? The Minister has told you. Travel abroad, travel inland to a limited extent because we're not traveling anyway, workshops and seminars, and all these other eats and whatever. I don't know where Accountant General got, my accounting officer got the bananas behind. Such expenses will go away to finance those COVID expenses. So we're not going to borrow beyond what has been programmed within the 51.9% of GDP. Don't make a mistake and say, oh, the government is not said it's not borrowing. We're borrowing little, but it's within the 51.9% of debt GDP, which has already been programmed. Domestically, it's about 2.9, and outside this money is from World Bank, IMF, and so on and so forth. There's little borrowing, but we capped within 51.9% of GDP, which is already announced in the budget.
Okay.
Okay, you get the idea? Don't say, don't go out. We have mobilized an amount of money in the budget, which was announced. Now, the emergency requirement which has come now for the financing of the COVID requirements is 600 billion. That's why we said, the rest of the sectors, let's sacrifice. Let's cut the budget by 40% while we protect a few areas, including health, of course, in order to address this issue. On the basis of information we have, this amount of money, when we give Ministry of Health, will certainly deal with the situation squarely. And that includes procurement of vaccines, procurement of oxygen, procurement of all the necessary PPEs, payment of allowances for the health workers, maybe recruitment of additional health workers. So on the basis of that information that we know now, the whole of government says, let's give Ministry of Health additional 600 billion above the budget which is available for next financial year. From the IMF, we normally go to IMF on the basis of the programmed borrowing, as I told you. There's a programmed borrowing within the 51.9%. IMF is one of the funders. And for the next 3 years, as the minister said, they're going to give us $1 billion US. And that $1 billion US, immediately they are going to disburse 258 billion to support the budget of the minister. The next, the rest will be disbursed in the next 2 financial years. So, if you ask the question, is it all that you need from the IMF or from any donor? Certainly, on the basis of the programs we have, according to NDP, this is the best that IMF is contributing to it. Other donors are coming on board. The World Bank, our own revenue is coming on board. If you listen to the statement of the minister, he says, this assistance will also help us as we grow out of the lockdown. It will help us in strengthening the revenue collection. The best effort that we must put in the budget is to improve revenue collection in order to deal with our own requirements, not necessarily development partners. Development partners come and help us. Okay. So part of the equation is that one.
The governor,
the governor wants to add something.
Having worked at the IMF before, I'll just tell you what this IMF support is about. The IMF financial assistance is meant to support economic policies and the structural reforms government is putting in place over a given period of time. So in the next 3 years, the government of Uganda has put in place some policies and some structural reforms that are aimed at resuscitating the economy. So this money is only contributing to supporting those policies and structural reforms with the view that these policies and structural reforms will generate additional resources to enhance the recovery. So it is not the entire amount of money that is needed for the economic recovery, for the post-COVID-19 recovery. It is only playing a role in facilitating the mobilization of additional resources that will contribute towards the post-COVID-19 recovery. We also expect that it will catalyze additional resources from other donors, bilateral and multilateral. Also, we think that the private sector, take for example the offshore players, are going to ride in on this program as a confidence measure to support the private sector development, which also is going to generate additional resources to support the post-COVID-19 recovery. So it is just a contribution from the IMF towards the post-COVID-19 recovery, not all the amount of money needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I think that's enough. You can now go and